The motivation for doing this special audit was the April 2018 breach of the Freedom of Information Access website and the resulting inappropriate disclosure of personal information. That event was the subject of considerable attention. It led us to ask what I believe is an obvious question: how could this happen? To find the answer, we assessed whether the Department of Internal Services had established processes to prevent this from occurring, and if so, were they actually following those processes? To do this, we audited the management of the projects that put the website in place. There are a few key conclusions from this audit. In examining how this inappropriate disclosure could have happened, the answer to me is very clear. In fact, I would say that alarmingly, the inappropriate disclosure is not surprising given our audit results. This incident is a real-life example of what can go wrong when the appropriate processes are not followed. There were two major shortcomings in the Department of Internal Services management of the implementation of the Freedom of Information Access website. Firstly, we found that the overall risk management of the projects to implement the website was completely inadequate. Some examples illustrate. The Department of Internal Services believed the risk of using the website was low, and they failed to perform a detailed risk assessment, despite the fact that Nova Scotia was the first in the world to implement this. Not only that, it was important to note that the data was to be stored in what is known as the cloud. This essentially meant personal information was to be stored and accessible outside of the government's network and control. Also, the Department of Internal Services did not ensure that the website was secure before using it. For example, the Department of Internal Services did not ensure there were security assessments done before the website went live. These types of assessments are standard before systems are available to the public and users. And also, the Department of Internal Services didn't fully use its expert in-house group, which might have identified the need to conduct security assessments. Secondly, the project management was completely inadequate. For example, the need for IT expertise on the project team of an IT-based project was not recognized. Also, we found there were time periods during the projects when there was no assigned project manager to ensure the right things were completed at the right times. We also concluded that undue reliance was placed on the outside vendor for project management. The Department of Internal Services should have identified areas of risk and been more engaged in those areas as a minimum. To me, this incident is a very clear example of what I believe is a lack of basic information technology risk management and what can happen when government does not protect the data it is trusted with. To address this, we made 5 recommendations which should address the shortcomings and could assist to prevent future unauthorized disclosure and bad things from happening. The Department of Internal Services have indicated agreement to the recommendations and have communicated planned courses of action. So what should happen now? I'm pleased that the Department of Internal Services agrees with our findings and the recommendations we have made. Now, they should act promptly to work on their promised actions to do all that can be reasonably expected of them to more effectively manage such risks. My report to the Legislature provides a tool for elected members to hold the government accountable for fixing these matters. I now want to leave you with 5 questions that you may wish to ask in relation to our conclusions on how this data breach occurred.